And that was Wayne Nelson there, our old friend Wayne from the Little River Band, doing the original 70s soundtrack there with us. And if you hear Sue speaking in the background, that's because she is screening in the most esteemed Rusty Young from Poco, who is on line one that she patches through as we speak. Hey, Rusty, you're live on the air with the original 70s soundtrack. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing fine, Alan. It's nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you. Thank you so much for calling us tonight. Did Mike send you our little script for our celebrity bumper?
Yes, he did. It's like a test or something?
Yeah. You want to see if you can...
you still have a few brain cells left, and that's the deal?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't be in that category, though.
Well, this can be scary for me, too.
Okay. Do your thing, man.
Okay. I've never done this before, so this is going to be a first. So.
Come on.
Come on.
Okay, ready?
Right.
Hi, this is Rusty Young of Poco, and you're listening to the original 70s soundtrack on 96 FIVE space CTG.
Well, that was almost, except I shouldn't have spelled 5 out like that. We really wanted you to say it rather than alphabetize it for us. I tell you what, can we get one more?
Leave it that way.
Capital letters. How do you
let's
say
leave
CTG
it that way.
Then?
No, I like it. Yeah, CTG. We just dropped the W when we brand. But I bet you've never done that live on the air with an audience listening before, have you?
No, I haven't. That's true.
Professional radio stations take you to the screener takes and gets that done. But we actually we started doing that just as on a lark a few interviews ago, and people sort of like the behind the scenes look, so we kept doing it.
I see.
Anyway, we were supposed to talk to you about a couple months ago, but we got our wires crossed. But we've got you now. And for people at home, just as a point of entry here, as an introduction, that may not know, of course, you have been with Poco, I think, pretty much from the beginning. And Poco, I think, formed from the ashes of Buffalo Springfield with Richie Fury and Jim Messina.
That's right. I was with Poco before there was a Poco.
Wow. You can't get any more original than that.
Pretty original, yeah. No, I met Jimmy and Richie. I was hired to play pedal steel guitar on a song called Kind Woman.
Right.
On the Buffalo Springfield's Last Time Around record. And so I was in Colorado at the time. I flew out to L.A., and I played on Kind Woman, and Jimmy and Richie and I had similar backgrounds and similar interests. We're similar age, the whole 9 yards. And we got along really well, and, the Springfield was breaking up, and those guys wanted to start a new band, and so they asked me if I would join them and start a new band, and that's how we got going. All
those years ago too, and the thing that always gets me is, and I'll just throw that out there. I mean, if I were to try and describe Poco or describe your impact or the band or what your place in music history is, I don't know that I could say with any definitiveness that there would be like this whole country rock genre. I'm not saying you guys were the first, but you were certainly among a handful of bands that sort of spawned that whole country rock deal.
Right. Well, it's pretty hard to put a finger on when it started. I mean, the Everly Brothers are country rock.
Sure.
And so was Ricky Nelson.
Buddy Holly too.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody from our generation can claim credit for that, but. We did kick off the frenzy that was behind country rock, California country rock.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Definitely the Southwest thing too. And of course, I don't know if a lot of people know this. One of the the original lineup included Randy Meisner, I think, for just the first record before he went to join the Eagles.
Right. Well, see, Randy, I knew Randy from when we were kids growing up. He's from Nebraska, and he played in bands in Denver, Colorado, where I'm from. And I'd always wanted to work with Randy. I always admired his.
Right.
He's a unique talent, and always wanted to be in a band with him. So when the Poco thing came up, I talked to Richie and Jimmy and got Randy into the band. And I got George, who was a drummer from Colorado, in to play drums. So our rhythm section was a couple of friends of mine.
Nice.
And we did audition some people, and Timothy B. Schmidt was one of the guys we auditioned. And I pushed hard for Randy, and Randy got in the band, but I don't think Richie really wanted Timmy in the band. So, the thing with Randy, that kind of blew up while we were making our first record, and Timothy B. Schmidt came in shortly thereafter. And then, I know he was really brokenhearted. He had to be in the Eagles, but
I was going to say, and then he left.
Tough gig.
Went to the Eagles.
Well, I tell you what, it's not a tough payday, but man, oh man, I just read Don Felder's book about a month ago, and I don't think there was a whole lot of happiness and joy much of the time there with the Eagles.
well, that's my understanding too. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is. And speaking of, here's what's neat. We've had a lot of people on the show recently, obviously from the 70s. And one of the things we talk about when we try and put some perspective on things, and what sort of amazes me too is you guys your original label allowed you to sort of grow slowly, and I think you were on that same label for like 5 years, and each album sold successively more and did better. But nowadays, I mean, if you're not hot right out of the gate, you're done, and it doesn't really matter what your track record is. I mean, the first time you drop a stinker out there, you're gone.
Yeah, music business has changed about as much as anything can possibly change since in the last 40 years, I guess, is what we're talking. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, and again, even to expand that, I mean, when I think ABC Dunhill picked you guys up, what was it, 74, 75?
Yeah, right around there.
And I mean, and so you had a little bit more upward movement, and then of course Timothy B. Schmid quits. But what was interesting too that caught my eye, a couple of British guys, Steve Chapman and Charlie Harrison, they jump in just in time for Legend, and of course they'd worked with, amongst others, Al Steward and Leo Sayer, who we've both had on the show.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's true. We had English roadies during the 70s. We were with a booking agency that it was Premier, and they had mostly English acts.
Right.
So we would go on the road and we would open for Yes, or the Moody Blues, or golly, who else? I can't even think of. Elton John opened for us. So did Peter Frampton.
Wow.
So we all these English acts, and so we ended up meeting a lot of English roadies because they would all have English roadies who wanted to stay in America, and so we had English roadies, and they knew Stephen and Charlie. And when we needed another rhythm section, they said, "Hey, we know these guys. You should listen to them," and because they had played together for a long time, they made a really good rhythm section. And we liked their approach, and so that seemed like the way to go.
Yeah, and it's funny too. British guys, don't they make the best roadies? They're like pirates. They ask no quarter, they hold no quarter. It's like
except they want their own spotlight. That was the only hard part.
Oh, really? They do?
When they stand on the side, they need a spotlight on them. Other than that, it's pretty cool.
Prima donnas. Well, of course, I just talked about Legend, and in 1978, finally, after 9 long years, you guys finally bust out with a couple of big singles off that. How did that feel? I mean, especially at this point, I mean, you're pretty much it. I mean, because everybody else is gone, and you've sort of rebirthed, Poco, and kept it going. And to have success that late, I mean, was that really? How did that feel to you as a creative force?
Well, that was that felt great because when the band started, and up until about that time, when the band started, all I did was I played steel guitar and banjo and dobro and that kind of stuff. I was the instrumentalist in the band. I didn't sing and I didn't write. And for the Poco, the first big hit, the only really huge hit Poco's had, was a song that I wrote and sang. So it's pretty ironic. But I've always said that with the band, what's happened is that as people have left the band, it's left room for others to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Had great teachers, Richie Furay, and Neil and Stephen still were around in the beginning, and I could listen to them writing songs and working on songs and how they did it. And Jimmy taught me really a lot about the whole recording process and writing songs. And I just had these great teachers that I was around, and so it was really, really ironic that I'd be the one that had the big hit in the band, and it would be 10 years after we started off. And it was ironic too because people kept wanting to have the band stop. When Richie left, when Randy left, and the label was real upset, and then Richie left, and everyone said, "Well, that's it, the band is over," but it wasn't. And then when Timothy and George left the band in '77. Everyone said, "Well, that's it." They even had a picture, on a magazine called Crawdaddy, which was a rock and roll magazine back in the '70s.
I loved it.
They had a picture of Richie Furay, J.D. Souther, and Chris Hillman throwing a black rose on a coffin that was in the ground, and the coffin said Poco on it.
Wow.
So, David Geffen tried to kill the band because he didn't want us to go on. He wanted Richie to carry the Poco banner,
How
the
about
band.
that?
Yeah.
And there, just over the years, people kept trying. Really, people in business kept trying to stop the band from going on. And so when that happened in 1978, it was just like it was a little bit of a nanny, you know.
Yeah. And I tell you what's even better, all these years later, and to me the trajectory of Poco, certainly not, well, stylistically in some ways too, but you guys had the different phases of the band, and kind of like the Doobie Brothers, there were, people came and went, and the death of the Doobie Brothers, and they would sort of morph into something else. And I mean, you guys were a little bit more consistent as far as your sound from start to finish, but it's cool now that all these years later, because I think you guys are in a situation where some of the original members will join you out on the road for dates like Jim and Richie as well, right?
Yeah, that is really neat, and that's part. Part of keeping Poco alive is that it keeps the music alive, and that's what it's really all about, and that's what our fans, what they're all about. They remember the songs. There are songs that they grew up with, or songs when they were in college that they listened to, or they got married to, or their first date was at a Poco concert, or something like that. It's about the music. That's really what it's all about, and so by still being out there touring like we are, it keeps the music alive. Because if we weren't doing it, I'm not sure, like Rose of Cimarron, well, that's probably a bad example because that gets played a lot, but, a lot of the songs would just disappear.
Sure. And
so that's really something that's important to me, is to be out there playing, picking up the pieces, and Good Feeling to Know, and songs that I think are important. They're important to the Poco fans, and not let them just fade away.
Well, I'm a guitar guy too, and of course I've always been intimidated by the pedal steel. I sort of jump around to almost anything that has strings on it within limits, but I mean, how is that as far as, as soon as I hear like that there's pedals and knee levers, and you got to have two hands on it, and all the fingers going, and I've watched you, I love your videos, by the way, on your website, and I'm just watching that whole vibrato technique. How do you even, was there like a dude in your neighborhood that was giving pedal steel lessons? How do you start with that?
No, I'm way older than that. I first picked up the steel guitar in 1952, and so pedals weren't really around then. They came in later on in the early 60s, and so I already had a background in technique, and you probably as a player understand that technique is the most important part. It's, technique, how you hold the bar and how you move the bar and the vibrato and your right hand technique, all that stuff.
Sure.
So I had a long foundation in that before pedals came along. And I also actually studied music, which is a little different than a lot of guys. I went to school and I studied with different, classical and jazz artists and, guys in Denver, and learned theory, took lessons and learned musical theory and 12-tone and all that kind of stuff. So, I had the technique down, and I got the knowledge. So when I started, there weren't pedal steel guitar players because it was a brand new instrument. So everyone had to learn at the same time, and so that's how I learned.
Wow.
But we're talking 1961 or something,
Yeah, well,
where you guys were born.
Well, no, I'm 45, and I'm just now taking singing lessons. I'm working on a CD at home. I got to get that in.
Oh, there
as
you
Sue
go.
rolls her eyes. If you can tell, Sue doesn't say a whole lot. Well, it's because I won't give her a breath.
That's not
but
true.
She does have a question. She's
That's
making
not
that face
true.
at me.
That's not true. I was looking at your website and I was reading all the blog entries that you had there and wondering how the recording that you're doing in Nashville's going with the new album.
Oh, actually we did, it was 2 weekends ago, we did a really cool thing in Nashville. It's, there's a friend of mine, another steel player, has a business called MPI, and what they do is when your favorite band is recording in Nashville, for a fee, they'll bring you in. This guy gives a lecture, and at the beginning of the day, and tells you what the recording process is about and what they're going to do in the studio in that day, and then they come in and they watch you record. And they learn how to, how records are made, and it's really a great thing for the fans to be there in the room when you're recording. Literally in the studio, sitting next to the drummer,
That's
and
awesome.
or sitting in the room when I'm overdubbing pedal steel.
Wow.
And so we had a great time. And I wrote a song called All Fired Up that I got all the fans to come and bring something they could beat on. So they could, like husbands.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. You can beat an egg, but you can't beat your old lady.
One of our friends was beating on a deli tray. I mean, it was all kinds of weird stuff. And so they set up this beat, and then that's the beat that we recorded. So all the
cool.
fans be on our record.
Cool.
So it was really fun.
Sort of like the Give Peace a Chance sessions.
Yeah, it's coming. The record's coming along great. I think we're going to do probably one more tracking session, so we'll have plenty to choose from. And I hope we can get it finished by the end of the year, but I wouldn't bet on it.
I'm totally in touch with that.
Next year, so.
Well, that, and you have tour dates that are going on now too.
Yeah, let's hit some of those. I know you don't have it in front of you, but I got you covered. Starting next month, you're going to be at least somewhere in our neck of the woods, Red Bank, New Jersey, just up the street from us. Alexandria, Virginia. You got to get your web guy to correct that. It's listed as Alexandria, Maryland, but we know it's Alexandria, Virginia, at the Birchmere, which is a very, very nice venue.
Yes, we play there every year.
Yeah, and I tell you, I like the synergy that you sort of have. Great touring partners when you guys go out with Pure Prairie League and the Firefall, whether it's the full band or the trio, is just awesome. And then I think Plymouth, New Hampshire on August 6th. So for kids in our immediate listing area that want to go check out Poco, Friday, August the 5th. They're going to be at the Birchmere in Alexandria, Virginia. And, of course, we're live coast to coast, too, so the tour continues on into the fall. And I guess I'm sure that you post dates as you get them, so.
We do. And the schedule's starting to fill up.
And for the kids at home, the website is called poconut.org, which I just love. I think and I tell you, we see the good, the bad, and the ugly. We see, because we always check out people's websites, and there's some bands that are just doing a fantastic job. And then there's other bands that's like, oh my gosh, you're just missing so many opportunities by not having your website together. But yours is really cool. I mean, just even visually, it's very, very nice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's a lot of activity on that. So.
Well, Rusty, thank you so much for calling us in, and thank Mike for us, your publicist, for we had to go back and forth quite a bit to get you here.
Well, I'm glad we finally connected.
Well, thank you so much, and we're going to drop right out of this interview right into Crazy Love. You want to voice it in for us there?
Voice it in.
Yeah.
Here's a song that I wrote back in 1978, and it was a song that took about 20 minutes to write. It just came out of the blue to me while I was at the house that I lived in Sherman Oaks, California, and it was just such a gift. I've been thanking the one above ever since.
Well, we thank you for sharing your gift with us too, Rusty. Have a nice night, buddy.
All right. Bye, Alan. Bye, Sue.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Rusty.